Hey everyone, welcome to Awareness with Ashley. My name is Ashley Stewart. I share a first-hand experience of what it's like living with idiopathic intracranial hypertension. You'll hear me call this IIH and migraines. I use my own experience to share what living with IIH and migraines is really like. In today's video, like I said, we're going to be talking about what I wish I could tell myself at the start of this journey. You feel so lost, and the things you learn along the way, you wish you understood a few years down the line. Today are going to be kind of the more subtle things that people may not realize comes with a chronic illness, and probably the things you'll never hear me talk about. The first one, and I didn't make title slides again. I don't think I'm going to be doing the title slides anymore. It just makes it look like a bit more of a presentation, and I don't really like it. So I'm going to just say that it may not be very obvious when I might be clicking into another topic because it's meant to be a smooth transition. Like, I don't make very many notes. Like, a lot of this I do off of just how I feel in the moment. So it's unscripted, basically. The only thing I have is just a few little blurbs just to jog my memory and make sure that I'm covering everything I want to cover. I do have this in a particular order, but these aren't going to be in the order of most significance. It's going to be in the order that I essentially came up with everything, which was all over the place. The back and forth and kind of out of order is sometimes why I'm better at writing articles than I am at doing these videos, because my brain will think of something in one topic and then it'll jump to the next topic and then we'll go back to the first topic, and that kind of fits more of a writing style. But when you're making videos, you don't always necessarily have the ability to go back to your previous topic. The first one is you will grieve the life that you have, and it's important to let this happen, and it's okay. It is a big change in your life. People will tell you to be positive, but it's okay to have bad days. One of the things that I want us to emphasize is that we need to emphasize that it's okay to have bad days. There's a point where being positive all the time is actually a negative thing. It's called toxic positivity. And you need to let yourself have authentic negative emotions, or if you don't, ignoring these feelings will only make the emotion stronger when they inevitably come up again. And I think people forget about this. They forget that we all go through ups and downs like just in regular life. So we need to have the ability to have these negative emotions. Friends and family are really, really bad at saying, oh, if you just be positive, this will all go away and get better. And it's not quite as simple as that. There is a grieving process to this, and you do go through all the stages of grief. And I can tell you that because I've been through all the stages of grief, and I've gotten to the acceptance phase of that. It took a very long time. And the thing is that although grieving does have stages, it comes in waves. So although I may be at an acceptance point now, you can start over and go back to the start of the cycle any point, at least based upon my experience. Like, I've had some times where I'll go for months where I'm just, things are fine, and then all of a sudden it'll hit with a wave of negative emotions and that grieving process again. I find that because I'm a lot more stable now, that it's actually not as bad as what it used to be. When the grieving process comes up, it's usually when you find out something that you're just unable to do now. I find it is more likely to come up essentially when you're experiencing something that you didn't realize was a limitation, and you're reminded that, yeah, although things are going well, it's not perfect. Although things are maybe going well, there are still limitations. And when those limitations reach a certain point, you get really, really frustrated with that. And I think that's pretty normal. But there is a grieving process that can come along with discovering something that you really wanted to be able to do and find out you cannot do it. Again, we need to normalize this. It is not okay telling people that, oh, all your problems will just go away if you're just a lot more positive. It's not fair to the person. And if you're going through a rough time, I just want to turn the tables and get you guys who are listening or watching this to really feel into that and say, if I was going through a tough time, would I be okay with someone telling me, well, if you just think positively, this will all change? Just think about that. Now, one of the things that you learn in meditation and with that, when you start getting deeper into the practice, is that suppressing negative emotions only makes the situation worse. It's actually when you feel into your negative emotions that things actually start to feel and you can work on those negative emotions. It sounds like it's counterintuitive, and actually people may not realize this, but when you're meditating, your goal is to not get rid of all your all thoughts. I don't know the best way to talk about this because I'm really not comfortable talking about it, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. But the biggest thing that I've learned with meditation, and I think this is another reason why I've been able to kind of confront this part of having chronic illness, is because I've really kind of looked inward upon that and, not tried to suppress those negative emotions anymore. And since doing that, it's gotten better. And I think that may be counterintuitive to some people, like, oh, you want to ignore ignore the pain. No, you want to feel into it and feel those emotions. If you suppress that grieving process, it makes it a lot more difficult to deal with. Despite the relationship with weight, this isn't your fault. IIH is by definition idiopathic, and therefore we don't know why it happened. So one of the biggest things that I would beat myself up upon, especially in the first few months, and especially when I was really struggling with losing weight at the start, was the fact that I was making it pretty much all of my fault. I thought all of this was all of my fault. I thought that I was in the position that I was because I was overweight. Idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Let's dissect the word idiopathic. Idiopathic means that you don't know why someone has the condition. And if we don't know why is so much emphasis put on weight loss? And I honestly think it's just because the medical community doesn't know what's going on, but they found that weight loss helps. So why not do that? Do I think it's directly involved? Well, there's probably some mechanisms, but do we really know? Probably not. I would say we don't really know, although they're doing research on it. With the weight loss issue and IIH, it's something that I think everyone should try, and I would tell myself, don't give up on that, because that will be your ticket to the closest normal life that you can have, but it's not going to solve 100% of the problems. And actually that gets into my next little point here, which is losing weight is important and is the key to getting back a bit of what you had before, but it will never be 100%. Accepting that it's not going to be 100% was another tough thing a few months ago, maybe even a bit far longer ago than that, but there was a point where I really wanted everything back. And it took a lot of self-reflection, introverted time alone, to understand and be okay with the fact that this wasn't going to be something that I got back 100%. I was going to have to be okay with a significant portion of that, but I was never going to get close to what I had before. I know I may not look like it when you see me deal with all of the things that I do in my life, and I may not look like, if you were to just see me out there and doing all the things that I do, that I'm struggling at all. But I would say I'm at about 85% of what I was before I was diagnosed. When I was diagnosed, I was a lot sicker, obviously, but it did go actually downhill, as I've talked about before. But anyways, so the 85% is what I had before I had any symptoms of IIH. That 85% is something that I'm very satisfied with at this point. I don't think it's going to get much better than that. I can't see it getting any better than that unless they improve IIH treatments or improve migraine treatments, which I still think I'm got a pretty good system going with what I have. My needle works very, very well, and although I struggle at certain times of the year and at certain times of the month, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. And there kind of has to be, I didn't write this down, but there has to be, I think, some self-reflection put into the fact that, not only is it an overall picture and overall how you feel, but you're still gonna have bad days with it. Not having bad days is just an unfair expectation, I guess, is what I want to get at with that. You cannot expect something that doesn't have a cure. They'll say weight loss with IIH. It is not a cure. It just puts the symptoms into remission for at least the most part. But let's say you get migraines on top of that. Well, having unrealistic expectations means that you're expecting your preventative medication to be 100%. The studies are so that you get a 50% reduction. So 50% for me would have went from 20 days with migraine type symptoms to 10. That would have been 50%. I've gotten way better than that. I think I've gotten probably now, well, it depends on the time of year and it depends on my periods, but there are some months where I have a handful of migraine days, and it's never to the point where I'm unable to function. So I don't know if you guys realize right now, and you won't be able to see this on the podcast, but I'm feeling pretty rough today. I didn't actually do a workout because I'm not feeling well, and I am in the few days before my period, rough time, and it's fall, and the weather is changing. I can feel it, I know it, and all of that. So I've kind of got a double whammy going on here. And it happens every fall, but I'm still able to do a live stream. I am still able to work if I had to work. I mean, yeah, it's painful and it sucks, and it's not, I'm not bouncing around all happy, but it is still, I'm still able to do the stuff that I need to do, and that's what matters. And I think that's what I need to emphasize with this. Like, it's not fair to expect something to be 100%. Whether you're on medication, whether you're on the acetazolamide, or whether you're, onto pyramid or whatever, like, your symptoms are not going to go away 100% because it's not a cure. It's just, they're just trying to manage those symptoms. And I think that's something that I would need to emphasize to myself. There were times where I got so mad because it wasn't 100%. And it took a long time and a lot of that self-reflection to go, you're not going to get 100% of this, and you have to be okay with that. I can't even put it into words, the mental and emotional feelings that I've gone through with some of this self-reflection. It's just, I don't think you can put it into words. It's just something that you got to work through on your own time. Kind of along the lines of you're not going to be 100%, kind of gets into the next topic that I've come up with here, which is, it's really, really important to find your limits and to abide by those limits once you find it. So I've kind of been, over the past, I would say year especially, been trying to find what my limits are. And now that I feel like I have kind of found my limits, now's the point where I'm like, I know my limits. It's important I don't push past this. And kind of the first struggle is actually finding where those limits are. So you and the limits actually change based again upon, for me, it's the time of month, it's the other things that are going on, whether it's weather changes, it's how well have I been doing with my lifestyle stuff. Am I getting in my meditations, which usually isn't a struggle, but it can be in certain circumstances. And if that was something that, I wasn't emphasizing, it would be a struggle. But I make sure to prioritize my meditations. So I will do a meditation over doing a lot of different things in the mornings or afternoons. I even sometimes will add in an extra session if I feel like I haven't done enough in a day. The most important thing with the meditations is that I do them. It's like exercise. So the most important thing with exercise is that you do it. And it can be a struggle. And the thing is getting into this example of limitations would be today. I know I'm not feeling well enough to do a workout. So the important thing is not to push it, because I know that if I push it, I can make things worse. And making things worse means I just prolong the symptoms that I'm having and or make them worse. You kind of need to figure out where those limitations are, and then once you figure out what your limitations are, you no longer push. At the start though, there is a little bit of like pushing limitations where you will push past your limitations and you'll find out what happens. And sometimes it can vary. Sometimes you'll pay dearly and other times not so much. The thing that you almost got to cross your fingers on is that when you do happen to push past your limitations, whatever reason for justifying that, I would tell myself, no matter what reason that I justify for pushing past my limits, which could be more social time with family, whether that be I'm not at home, I'm visiting with someone and it's 9 o'clock and normally I would be going to bed at that point, do I stay up late and risk the fact that I'm going to get less sleep and possibly be not so great to be around the next day because I need my sleep in order to have the energy? Or have I not spent enough energy that I can get away with a little less sleep? It's all about determining in the moment what the right decision is. And sometimes you pay extra for the decisions you make. So there are times where I will go out or, do something past that 9:30 window. So 9 to 9:30 is generally when I go to bed. This is really, really strict because I need my rest in order to be able to maintain what I do now. And actually, I start to feel it by the end of it. By the end of a week, I really do start to feel it. And it's the fatigue that starts to creep in a little bit more when I'm dealing with the symptoms that I am now. Knowing your limitations and not pushing past those, and understanding that sometimes, although it might be a good choice, to do a workout or to spend more time with friends and family, what are the consequences of that decision and what are the possible ramifications if that decision turns out to go very badly in the wrong direction? And obviously with a workout, it's a little bit more of a punishment when you push your body physically too far. I've been able to get away with a little less sleep over the past few months, but it's because it's been summer. So, it's just a matter of me feeling into it. And basically, I would tell myself, it's going to take some time to figure out what these are and what's going to happen and kind of when you can kind of push that a little bit. But generally, that's the reason why I'm pretty strict with my routine. With the grief aspect of this, if you find me sitting in a corner and tears are streaming down, it could be because I'm meditating. That does happen. I am not afraid to share my emotions or to have tears running down my face when I'm in the middle of an intense meditation. It happens. It's normal. I have a really hard time actually expressing my emotions and all of that around others. I am very introverted in the fact that I like to share my emotions in an introverted way. So I tend to get rid of my emotions on my own and in the presence of myself, or I don't like to have people see me upset, and it's because I don't really want to explain why. But it's getting harder and harder to hide emotions now that I'm doing this meditation journey, so that just may not be a possibility. And if you ever do see me crying, there could be multiple reasons for it. Getting into the next topic is something I really want to emphasize, and it kind of gets into everything I've kind of talked about and wraps it up in a nice form, which is the importance of routine and the fact that you need to be so tight and strict with it. You have, let's say, a plan each day, depending on whether you have a job, whether you have stuff that you need to do around the house, whether you just even, let's say that you're at your worst and you want to have a shower and maybe get up and read a book or something, or do a puzzle. I spent hours doing puzzles when I was at my worst. I actually wish I would have known about this because I would have thrown some photos up, but I've shared these photos. You can check them out, I think, and many videos and all of that. But I've done 3D puzzles. That was one thing that I did a lot of actually when I was at my worst. The thing I want to emphasize with this is just getting up and doing something each and every day is a way to kind of help get out of that slump that you feel when you're down and out because of whatever reason. And it helps with the routine and all of that. I would say even just as simple as, let's say your goals for the day are get dressed, have a shower, and do a puzzle for 20 minutes. That's, I think, a perfect amount of stuff. I don't think someone needs to be pressured to do any more than that. And let's say the next day is you have a plan to meet with a friend and you're going to just go for a short little walk. That could be a high day that you need to save energy up with when you're at your worst. And definitely that applied to me. You need to stress your routine, which gets back into the thing that I talked about with bedtime. I am extremely strict with my bedtime, especially when I'm at home. You will see me no matter what and how tired I am. I generally am pretty tired though by the time 9:30 rolls around, especially when I've worked all day. But I am pretty strict with that 9 to 9:30. And I will start winding down at about 10 to 9 o'clock. It's helpful now that it's darker. This is really, really difficult to do in the summer, and is actually tend to why I sleep a little less in the summer, because it's lighter out a lot later. Not as late as what a lot of people are or a lot of places, I guess I should say, because we don't observe daylight savings time. So there's no extra hour of sunlight in the evening here. So sun sets in June 9:30 to 9:45. That's the latest we have it. And it's nice for me, who needs to have that strict routine of where I go to bed at 9:30 every night because of needing that extra sleep and getting up at the same time every day. So I get up between 10 to 7 and 7:30 every day. It's a little bit different depending on how tired I am. And there are some times where I sleep to 7:30 and I really struggle, but getting up at the same time every day just helps me keep that routine in place. And so I get up, I do my meditation, have a glass of water, and have my breakfast. That's generally the start of the morning. And then depending on what I'm doing, I'm usually off to work or I watch YouTube or do whatever. It's the exact things I do is not exactly important, but when I'm very, very active, getting consistent breaks matters, and, not pushing myself too far also matters. And it's just, now I feel like I have the ability to know what those limitations are and not overdo it as much as before. It's kind of been a trial and error process, I would say. Like, it hasn't been exactly perfect all of the time. It works a majority of the time, and that's what matters. The fatigue is hard enough to deal with as it is, but then you start having problems with sleep. And actually, it's ironic too, because I find that when I have the most symptoms, I have the most trouble sleeping. But it's hard to tell whether some of those extra symptoms are because I'm not sleeping well or because I'm just not getting quality sleep, or I'm unable to sleep as easily and the extra pain just doesn't help, or the extra stress from that doesn't help. It seems like it's an endless futile cycle again of the chicken and the egg kind of thing, which came first and which is the actual thing that causes that endless feedback loop. People make fun of me because I go to bed so early, but you wouldn't if you were dealing with the same level of fatigue that I deal with. And it's nowhere near as bad as what it used to be, which would blow some people's minds, I think, because I don't think people realize exactly what I was dealing with at that point. All right, so that's it for this one, guys. I feel like I've covered this topic in quite good detail and kind of covered the more subtle things that I think people don't really think about when it comes to those more subtle things that we kind of wish we knew at the start of this journey, and that many of us learn the hard way. And I think no matter what, like, you're gonna learn some of these the hard way. It's just inevitable. Like, you're not always gonna find the ideal answers at the start. You're gonna learn some things the hard way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps get the show out there. Hope to see you again next week for our next episode. Bye, everyone.